And finally this evening, right after Kent Tonight, we have another brand new episode of Kent Film Club. Well, to find out what's to come and what we should be watching in the cinema this week, I'm joined by the show's presenter, Chris Deacy. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. Now, 60 years of the Dartford Crossing, but 60 years of Doctor Who. It's one of those things that we're all familiar with, and it's been on our screens for so many years.
And I'm old enough to remember not the very first incarnation, which was William Hartnell, who was a very serious actor, although he did appear in one of the Carry On films. But I remember maybe the tail end of John Pertwee, who I also remember as Wurzel Gummidge when I was growing up, but Tom Baker, Tim Davison, that was my kind of era, late 70s, early 80s.
I must admit, I've never watched Doctor Who. Not a show, not a minute. So I'm missing out on something, perhaps. What film should we be watching this week? Of course, we're eking into the last few days of November, into Christmas, but anything before we get into the Christmas spirit?
Well, you've just reminded me, of course, it's Thanksgiving. So there is a film called Thanksgiving, which is a horror film. It's actually quite funny, because you know with Christmas we often talk about capitalism, commercialism, but actually this is a film about the Puritan fathers, but it's a horror film which makes almost like capitalism the killer. It's a fascinating film, but actually using the Thanksgiving meal as a way into those sort of questions.
Fascinating. What have you been watching this week? What should we keep our eyes peeled for?
So I think Saltburn was really good. It's sort of talented Mr. Ripley film. Also May December, also a fascinating film in sort of like a tabloid scandal. You peel away the layers of the onion and you get something quite caustic underneath. That was really good. The sort of film you don't know where it's going. You might think at first, is it like going to be a rom-com? It's got Natalie Portman in it, Julianne Moore. But yeah, fascinating, very multi-layered film. Very
interesting. And now, Chris, something I'm going to spring on you. I'm going to do a quick fire round. I've got a few questions to ask you. We want your answers as quick as we can, okay? You can answer at home too if you're watching. Right. What film scared you the most?
Halloween.
Halloween. What film made you really happy?
Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion.
What is the worst film you've ever watched?
Well, I walked out of Black Hawk Down.
Ah, surprised
Ridley
by
Scott,
that one. What film has stuck with you the most?
In the Line of Fire.
In the Line of Fire. And what film could you just watch again and again and again? I know you do it with plenty of them, but
I
pick
do.
one.
If I had to pick one, I'm going to say Little Voice.
Little Voice, okay. And what film disappointed you the most? So I know you walked out of one, but what film did you have high expectations for, I suppose?
I might say Black Hawk Down, because it's one of those films you're watching it and thinking, this is kind of not my genre, very sort of wartime film. But yeah, there are a couple of films that I sometimes sit there and just think, where is this going?
What film surprised you the most?
Okay, film that surprised me the most, I'm going to say American Beauty, actually, when I saw it, because that was like, where is this taking me? The whole like life after death element.
I suppose a bit maybe reminiscent of the recent Barbie movie, Where Is This Taking Us? A lot of people thinking that. It's a controversial really one, isn't it? What's your least favourite genre of film?
Oh, war films.
Okay, and how many times have you been to the cinema this year, a guess?
Well over 100.
Well over 100. See if you can beat that at home. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks, Abby.
And of course, a brand new episode of Kent Film Club right after the break, where you can hear more from Chris and his guests. That's all from me this evening.